Today, let's talk about the American election, which always seems to be a big piece of news for many people, not only people living in the US, but also people from other countries. In the past few days, people have been so anxious to wait for the result, which seems to be very important to many people's lives, to the politics. But can we question it? Is that really important or not? People are so interested and curious about this action, which only reflects that most people are confused about their lives, the existence, everything around them, including politics. Today, we don't give any very specific comment, opinions about somebody or something, which doesn't help to give us a clarity about everything. And the opinions and views can only add up to the chaos of the current situation. But we can still look at the whole situation from the perspective of the nature of mind, or we can say from the perspective of the truth about the mind. Well, it is truth, but we still call it a perspective. You may find that how easy it is to use language to banalize everything. We can make something not so important important. We can also make something which is very important not so important. That's the trick of the words, the language. This morning, I read news about Joe Biden, who gave a talk in front of media. He said that the democracy works. This triggers me a lot of thinking about this democracy. If we said democracy works, it means that sometimes it doesn't work. At least the existence of Donald Trump as the president now of the US has told a lot of things about democracy. We can't say who is really good, who is really bad, because that's only opinion. And politics is also a specific domain where people have a very specific mentality. There's a perfect combination of the media and the politics to re-enhance the influence on people in their daily life. Using videos, images, verse, all kinds of rhetorics to influence people, and also call on people to vote. In a game of politics, or in a game of this democracy, voting is very important. It is mathematically and symbolically important, right? If nobody voted, this game couldn't continue. If not so many people voted, the result can be only controlled by a small part of the population, which leads to all kinds of uncertainties of the result. If so many people voted, right now, like so many people are voting, the result is still very contentious. So the whole system, from the values, from the ideas, from the ideologies shown in the politics to the influence via the mass media, it is a game, purely a mental game. And look at the people who don't vote. At least it shows that there are so many people who are really indifferent to politics, to such a mental game. Why is the politics so important in their life? Isn't it because the life is fully conditioned on politics. And people have a lot of illusions about the democracy. Some people hope to vote for somebody who can really represent him or her. But the real situation points us to that this is an illusion. Nobody can really understand you. Nobody can really represent you. And it's only you can really understand yourself, understand what you really need. If you are not influenced and bombarded with all kinds of things from media every day. Have we ever examined our life in such a detail? The whole content of the consciousness is full of fragmentation. It's full of inferences. It's full of all kinds of images about the self, the ego. It's such a chaos, isn't it? The life is fully conditioned on the self, on the ego. So everyone is going through some sort of a turbulence in life. Because of the self, we have this politics. Everyone is egocentric, is selfish, and want to use some kind of external forms to have this kind of checks and balances, which is the form of the democracy we mean here. So everyone is in chaos. Everyone's mind is chaotic. Everyone's mind is full of all kinds of influences, all kinds of contradictions, divisions, fragmentations. The mind is so chaotic that we don't know what to choose, what we want for. And then we are told that we have the right to vote. Voting is very important. Voting can list all kinds of things that is promised via media. The candidates show that they can represent you. They feel connected with you. But when everybody is running the self on the mind, everyone is isolated. There's no any connection at all. When you and me are isolated by the self, we only care about the self. How can we be connected with each other? We have to look at these politics objectively. And it can be hard, especially for those people who are living in the Western world. Their life has been so conditioned on this. It's difficult to face it objectively without any reaction. But if one really want to know, or want to get the clarity about life, one has to readjust one's mind to face this. Why is it so difficult to remove Donald Trump from the president? Why are there so many people disliking him, but cannot do anything about it? There could be a lot of criticism, condemnation on what he did. But as we said before, his appearance as the president of that country has shown that this kind of game of democracy is being challenged when someone who is not in that mental game walks into that game. At least from the vote, there are still so many people supporting Donald Trump, which might repel a lot of people. Some people dislike him very, very much, but there are still so many people supporting him. At least to somebody, Donald Trump is a very true person. What he has shown in front of media is very similar to his private life, probably to many people's private life. That is very hard to criticize him when one's life is very similar to his in private. Because Donald Trump has shown authentically, in a way, because this kind of authenticity, quoted authenticity, he presented the chaos of his own life in front of media without any pretentiousness. without any what is called decency, and this disturbs the American politics. Before we question the authenticity Donald Trump has shown here, let's look at decency. When we maintain that decency, we are inevitably hypocritical, isn't it? The decency has a lot of with the self-image, respect. And when we are seeking decency, we are seeking respect. We are seeking some kind of images or thought that make us feel respectful. That kind of decency makes us very difficult to be honest with ourselves truly. For Donald Trump, his performance is very true because many people's life in private is very similar to him. Probably for many politicians, they maintain the decency in front of the camera, but their private life can be no big difference from Donald Trump's. This kind of chaotic life is all because the self-centered activities, the narcissism. So it's pretty good to have Donald Trump in front of media, to be a mirror through which we can look at ourselves. How much our life looks like Donald Trump's. Can we live a life truly different? Without lose chaos, without lose violence, without all this mischief made by the self, can we live a life which is free from the self, from the ego? Which also means that can we live a life free from the violence? If everyone could live a life without the self at the center, the society will be changed completely, totally. So is the democracy, the form, also the freedom, another form. For most people, they are living in thoughts. And living in thoughts, there's no freedom. Living in thoughts means inferences, means all kinds of reactions to the thoughts, means confusion. If a system is based on this, even it is called democracy, it has nothing to do with freedom. No matter how permissive the society is, it absolutely has nothing to do with freedom. The freedom only comes from within, from a mind which is not caught up in the self, in the ego, in the self-centered activities. In that state of mind, there's a vast space without a center. And in that space, there's the freedom. So for the election, we can read news about it to entertain ourselves. But for what is behind this action, there's a lot to think about it, to reflect about it, to rethink the life, the meaning, and the existence.